んな嘘だろう。
There are spoilers in this video. Sideorder has been out for quite some time now, and I'm sure we all have some interesting thoughts about it. Some of these thoughts may be like stuff like, was Sideorder even good to begin with? Was it rushed? Are we gonna have 2 more years of Perlina discourse for some reason? Well, whatever your thoughts on it are, I'd love to hear it for a future video. But the main thought I want to talk about today, which I've been hearing about especially during Sideorder's release, was its difficulty, or I should say lack thereof, which is weird because considering since Splatoon 1 we've been asking for harder campaigns, and don't get me wrong, Octo Expansion was great at that. We like campaigns like Octo Expansion, and that's what we expect more of going forward. But also, Sideorder is a roguelike. And the thing about roguelikes is that they're meant to be played over and over and over again, no matter if you win or lose. And because of that, most roguelikes become insanely difficult, which you could argue that it's good for replayability and, you know, sometimes you just suck and that's okay. While I never expected Sideorder to be like into the Gungeon or Hell Super levels of difficult, Sideorder is difficult. However, due to this one system in the game, it can go from being the most difficult Splatoon campaign to being even easier than Splatoon 2's campaign. Yeah. What the f? It's impressive how easy it can be. I want to point this out right now. Permanent progression is not a bad thing for roguelites. A lot of roguelites have them. The thing is, it's how it is done. But it is easier said than done. You don't want the rewards to be bad enough to where it's not worth the grind, but you don't want them to be too good to where the rest of the game feels extremely easy. And that's where Sideorder lies in. In all honesty, you can take at least half of the hacks that Marina has and just make them chips. And that would honestly fix some of the Sideorder difficulty. But that didn't happen. So unfortunately, this is the setup that we're going to have to deal with. So the goal of this video is to take all of Marina's hacks and balance them out to create a perfect difficulty. A difficulty to where it's not too hard, but any floor you go into may be your last if you're not careful. Now before I get into that, there are 2 things you should know. Number 1, this is my opinion. You don't have to play Sideorder this way. This is just how I'm gonna do it. And number 2, this difficulty that I make will probably be the staple for any Sideorder challenge I make after this video, unless stated otherwise. With that out of the way, let's get to designing the perfect Sideorder difficulty. So to start off, Marina's hacks can be divided into 5 different sections, and these sections are Agent 8, Pearl Drone, RNG, enemies, and rewards. I'm going to start by what I think is easier to balance and then work my way up. Starting with the enemies, revealing the boss at the 10th floor, revealing the boss on the 20th floor, and weakening enemies up to floor 20. All of these will be turned off, and the reason why is because if you know what boss you're going to deal with at the start of the run, then you're going to prepare your entire palette dealing with them. One of the biggest strong suits of a roguelike is not knowing what's going to happen next. If you try to make a build based off a certain event that will happen in the run, what are you going to do if that event doesn't happen? You should be encouraged to make builds based off what you need at the moment rather than what you will deal with in the future. And weakening enemies just makes sense, so I just turned that off entirely. Now the next thing to talk about is the reward progression. Basically the amount of pearls and membucks you get in a run. Risky rewards is completely optional to me, but I turn it off just because due to the amount of hacks you might have, I don't think the risk is worth it. But if you're up for it, then go right ahead, I guess. And as for the membucks you get, actually, I think I should get back to this. Moving on to the vending machines, immediately, guaranteed spots are off. Vending spots should be like a grace period or a breath of fresh air. Like you just had a really bad floor that you barely survived, and your next floor, you're given the option, and depending on how bad the last floor was, you might be like, you know what, I just need a little break. Let me just skip this next floor. But with that being said, not only are the guaranteed spots that are turned off, but resets are also turned off. What the game gives you is what the game gives you, and you cannot change that. But to make up for what the game did give you, everything is discounted off to at least 30%, which goes back to the membucks I was talking about earlier. how much you should get. I feel like if you go to the shop a lot, you will not have enough to buy much. So I am going to increase it just a bit to 1.3, just so you should always be able to buy at least 2 things if you decide to go to a vending machine. You may not like what the game gives you, and you might want to just go back and not buy anything. But sometimes something is better than nothing, and that's the choice that you have to make. So we discussed the enemies, we discussed the vending machines, and we also discussed the rewards. Now we're moving on to Pearl. Pearl is going to be extremely simple here. Basically, everything that you unlock for her is turned on, but there is a catch. While everything is turned on, the amount of abilities that she can have is up to 3. It still makes Pearl really good, but she can't do everything for you. You pretty much have to balance it out. It raises a couple more problems. Like, yeah, Pearl could still get Ink Strike, Killer Whale, and Splat Bomb, and those are really good options, but you may get an entire run waiting to get those options and you might not get them. I think that's pretty fair, right? And now let's talk about the man, the myth, the legend themselves, RNGesus. Even though this is a roguelike, everything has RNG in. In RNG, there are 3 hacks, which is chip color bias, double chip chance, and floor resetting. Floor reset is off entirely. Again, what you get is what you get. Double chip chance, I would set it to 13 just because I do believe that by default it is pretty small, so I wanted to raise it up a little bit. Now you can actually go through a run and potentially see one. And color bias, I just put the slight, just because I feel like that makes the most sense. We got all the sides out of the way. Now we're on to the main course. This section, I believe, makes up at least 70% of this difficulty, and that is you, the player. Agent 8. And left no crumbs. Why do you guys watch my content? I'm so sorry. Agent 8 has 8 different hacks, which is kind of funny now that you think about it. All 8 of these hacks hold significant amount of weight on how a run will go, for obvious reasons. This section will either make the game completely easy or extremely difficult. So now, let's talk about it. Starting off with continues. There is none. No, I'm not elaborating on this one. Next is attack damage. I put it at 1.4 to where it's still kind of weak, but you can still make a stand for yourself if you need to. And besides, there are so many ways to increase damage in Sideorder, it would kind of be too broken if you just maxed it out. Broken armor jump is gone entirely. It is way too much of a crutch, even if you just upgrade it once. You lose your armor, you jump in the air, and then you glide to wherever you can, and you'll just be fine immediately after, most of the time. The only thing that somewhat makes it not as effective is the fact that your armor won't repair as long as you're gliding. But in my opinion, I don't think that's enough. But to compensate, broken armor speed is put to max. So if your armor does break, you can run away, as long as you're not cornered. But we can't talk about broken armor speed if we don't talk about armor recovery speed. Which this one's actually kind of funny to me because I was gonna put it at 6 seconds to compare to the Halo shield regen speed. But I found out that every game is unique, and also you recover faster in swim form, so I kind of just nerfed it just a little bit. Hope you have a getaway plan. Okay, so what about the amount of armor that you can have? You can only have +1 armor, which makes sense. You always have armor to begin with, so I feel like anything more than like 1 extra coat of armor would be overkill in my opinion. And besides, you get armor really easily, especially if you're doing a luck run. And now let's talk about probably the most important one of this run, which is damage reduction. Fun fact, did you know that without upgrades, you actually take double damage in Sideorder than you do in any other campaign? I know the game shows you this, but when you actually like think about it, it's just kind of shocking to me. So with that knowledge, I was just gonna put it at 1, but I'm just gonna slightly decrease it to 1.9, just to give you a little bit of leeway. Also, so those like fish fuckers don't instantly break your shield, but those Beyblades and sniper dudes will still instantly break your shield. So while the lesser enemies will still have trouble killing you, that doesn't mean that they can't jump you. And that covers everything. That's every single hack there is in Sideorder. I thought there'd be more to it, but no, there isn't. Wait a minute, I forgot there's one more factor I completely forgot to talk about. The amount of lives you will have in a single run. Just please hear me out. In this difficulty that I am making, you are only given just 1 life. Just 1. It doesn't matter what chips you have. It doesn't matter how long it took you to get to where you were. If you die just once, it is game over. Like I said earlier, every floor you walk into can be your last if you're not careful enough. But I kind of wish that Sideorder had like a thing where like you would get an extra life every 10 floors, like a temporary life. Or better yet, you can actually sell your lives and the vending machine for pearls, if you want to spice up the challenge a little bit. Wow. You know, when I first came up with this video a couple weeks ago, I thought there'd be more to it. Sideorder, in my opinion, is just a baby's first roguelike, which makes sense for two reasons. One, correct me if I'm wrong, but Nintendo hasn't really done roguelikes before, right? And number two, everybody knows that Nintendo fans don't play other games, so it makes sense for this one to be kinda bare bones in the roguelite sense, in my opinion. I am not saying that Sideorder is bad, far from it. But all the other issues that Sideorder does have, I can't or don't know how to fix it. And I know there's gonna be you in the comments saying how this is still too easy or this is just way too hard, and let me just say, it's okay if you don't agree with me, that's fine. This is just how I believe the perfect difficulty is. But I do give Nintendo credit for allowing us to choose how difficult we want the game to be. Fun fact, I actually did not increase the life counter past 3 this entire time, and I still haven't. And if you feel like that Sideorder is lackluster, I'm pretty sure there are people somewhere that are trying to make this mode even better than it already is. This is just my way of doing it. And this is coming from somebody who didn't take Sideorder really seriously. My biggest concern to Sideorder was, how could I compare it to either Portal or Boneworks? And yes, I am making a Sideorder x Boneworks video. But yeah, I've said my thoughts. So you know what? My name's O.C.C.B. Have a good one. Drink some water.